Let's talk about Superman Red Son in my DC Cinematic Universe, Elseworlds. We start off, Superman's launched from Krypton and lands in 1923, Soviet Union, Russia. See a lovely montage of him growing up in the Soviet Union, and then when he's a teenager, he stops an assassination attempt on Stalin, prompting Stalin to adopt him as his own son. And then we cut forward to 1952. We see the American government reacting to the rumors that the Soviets have a super weapon known as the Soviet Superman. And so they contact boy genius Lex Luthor, who's only 16 years old, who suggests the idea that they shoot down Sputnik 2 so it crashes into America. So the Russians would have to send something to catch it. They do that, and he does. Superman is exposed to the entire world. As the world is grappling with this knowledge, we see America try to figure out defenses, and we see other countries try to get in good with the Soviet Union because they are now terrified. One of those countries that tries to get in good is the independent island nation of Themyscira, and the princess of Themyscira is being offered as a bride to Stalin's son. The princess is Diana, and she is head over heels in love with this man. But Vasily Stalin, Stalin's oldest living boy, confronts his father about his obvious favoritism towards Superman, but Stalin just admonishes his son, being like, yeah, of course he's better than my actual fucking kids. He's a god. Know your place. Get out of here. Vasily gets pissed at this, gets wasted drunk, and goes outside, where he finds a couple and their small boy defacing posters of Superman. And look, even though he doesn't like his adopted brother, he's not going to let this unpatriotic act stand, so he kills these two parents in front of their 8-year-old son. We then cut to 1953, where we see that Lex Luthor has finished his new project, the Superior Man. They've managed to recover DNA samples of Superman and imbue them into one of their soldiers. And so he'd be wearing basically old classic Superman costume. He flies to Russia, fights Superman, and as they're fighting, he starts mutating and growing into Bizarro. The DNA in him, it's not doing good. Shit's going bad. And because this fight is so catastrophic to the entire world, the British government fires a nuke at the two warring Supermen. But when they see this nuke coming, both Superior Man and Superman team up to stop it. They grab it, they fly it up into the upper atmosphere, and it blows up. It completely vaporizes Superior Man, but Superman is fine. But witnessing that nuke go off in the sky, Stalin sees it, and that is the night that Stalin suffers a brain hemorrhage and dies. Superman flies back down after his fight, and he has to get radiation scrubbed, and then he finds out about his father's death. At Stalin's funeral, there's a lot of chatter going around about who's going to take his place, and Superman is approached by the Central Committee, asking him to take over. He doesn't want to accept, but then his older sister, Svetlana Aluyeva, she urges her brother to accept and turn the Soviet Union into an actually good, nice place. Superman takes his sister's advice and accepts the role leading the Soviet Union. Then back in the US, we see Lex Luthor destroying his lab in anger, screaming that it's your fault. And we see him pointing to a computer monitor where we see 3 dots. And then the voice of Brainiac comes out saying, "Don't worry about it. We still have plenty of time before I arrive." We then cut to 1967, and we see that Superman Soviet Union has expanded and taken over most of Europe. But now, terrorist attacks, organized terrorist attacks, are happening around the Soviet Union by a man simply known as the Bat. We see that over these last 15 years, Superman and Wonder Woman have been working together very closely, and Diana so in love with this man. But as the Batman's attacks increase, we see him expose the dark underbelly of Superman's utopia. Any dissidents, any naysayers about Superman's leading ability are disappeared to a hidden facility and lobotomized by Superman himself. Superman took over, but he isn't trying to make the Union better. He is trying to make it what Stalin told him it should be. Superman's sister Svetlana confronts him about learning this information, asking if it's true, and he confirms that it is. And so his sister defects to the United States. In a rage, Superman and Wonder Woman go and confront the Bat, but Superman is weakened by this mysterious green rock, and Wonder Woman is kidnapped and led to a warehouse in Stalingrad, where Batman holds her hostage. Superman goes to save her, but Batman turns on red solar lamps, and this guy is powerless, and Batman starts beating on him, revealing that he is that 8-year-old boy that Vasily, his older brother, murdered the parents of in that alley all those years ago. And as Batman is giddily beating on this man, he lets slip that he wouldn't have stood a chance against Superman if it wasn't for all of these new inventions given to him by his benefactor. And while this fight continues, a large skull spaceship uncloaks over Stalingrad. It's Brainiac's ship. It fires a beam down at the city. We see it starting to carve Stalingrad out of the ground. As Superman is being beaten to death, he begs Wonder Woman to save him, but she is bound within her own lasso of truth. But seeing the man that she loves being beaten, she summons all of her godly strength and rips through the lasso of truth, and half of her face droops down and her hair turns shock white. And then she destroys the red solar lamps and he gets his powers back. He immediately flies out of the warehouse and up towards this alien ship, and it fires a beam down at him, which he dodges out of the way of. And then the beam hits the city, and in an instant, the city is shrunken down and trapped in a jar. Brainiac goes to pick up the jar to see the shrunken Superman in it, but he zooms in and only sees a shrunken Batman and Wonder Woman. And then Superman appears behind his shoulder and rips Brainiac's head off. Looking at the shrunken city of Stalingrad, Superman begins to weep. And then we cut into the shrunken city, where we see the Batman pull out a radio and call Lex Luthor, informing him that their plan didn't work. Superman isn't in the bottle. And Lex says that's okay. He's working on another project with great potential. And the camera pans, and we see Lex performing an autopsy on Aben Sur. And we see that he has his Green Lantern ring in some sort of container behind him. We then cut to 2001. Superman has not aged since 1953, and the now 65-year-old Lex Luthor is the president of the United States. During these last 33 years, Superman's Soviet Union has been declining and his actions growing more extreme. Citizens being lobotomized for lesser and lesser infractions, and implants that look like Brainiac tech being put inside their brains. Superman has reprogrammed Brainiac over these decades, and he now serves as Superman's right hand and sort of information wheel. We see that Superman has constructed a fortress of solitude known as the Winter Palace in northern Siberia, and meanwhile Lex Luthor has turned the United States into a democratic utopia, like a full-blown, the dream vision of the future that the 50s people thought it would be. Lex actually did that. And we see President Lex Luthor happily announce to the world the weapon that will finally end the threat of Superman, his Green Lantern Corps. And we see basically all the human Green Lanterns standing behind them with artificial rings that Lex had made, and one person wielding a real one, Captain Hal Jordan. And as they fly off to go fight Superman, Lex turns to a mystery figure, and he asks, "Is everything on track to begin?" And the mystery man says, "Yes, it is." Superman begins taking on these lanterns, but they are kind of whooping his ass. They are very well trained. They are way too well coordinated. And so Superman has to call on his Brainiac retaliation protocols. And we see all of the lobotomy victims that had that Brainiac tech in their heads, their eyes glow, and they start running out of their homes. They run to army bases, and they all hop in fighter jets and begin a full-blown war with the United States. We even see Brainiac's ship power up and head towards the United States for war. But as Supes is taking out American soldiers left and right, something smacks him from behind into the ground. He turns to see what it is, and it's Wonder Woman. Her hair is still white, but the rest of her is completely healed. Superman asks how this is possible because she was shrunken. And then a voice says, "Because of me." And we see this speck that was on Wonder Woman's shoulder jump off of it and grow into Dr. Ray Palmer, the mystery man Lex Luthor had been talking to. And then Superman is tied up in green light. The Green Lanterns have caught him. And then we see a now 57-year-old Batman standing there too. And then President Lex Luthor lands in front of Superman in a robotic battlesuit bearing the Superior Man logo, the classic Superman logo. Lex is incredibly proud to finally speak to the man he's been trying to stop for almost his entire life, face to face. And he admits that everything this guy's been fighting against was all him the entire time. Superman is trying to state that he's not the bad guy here. He was just trying to control everything so that everything would be safe and okay. And Lex breaks this man by kneeling down in front of him and asking him, if all you wanted was control, then why didn't you put the entire world in a bottle? And Superman breaks down, realizing that everything he's done, his whole Soviet Union, was just a large-scale version of what he views as his greatest failure, the shrinking of Stalingrad. And so then, as the Brainiac ship is approaching the US and blowing a whole bunch of stuff up, Superman launches himself towards it. He grabs the ship and flies it into the sun and seemingly dies. After this, Lex Luthor founds the global United States, taking over the now completely defunct Soviet Union, and basically it seems like a utopia is now becoming a thing because of Lex Luthor and his Justice League that he has created. But while this big hooray we did it press conference is happening, Wonder Woman notices something. A tall man in a suit and tie with a pair of glasses, watching them and smiling. She tries to get a better look at him, but a man crosses in front of him, and when he's done, that man has vanished. And that is my version of Superman Red Sun. Tune in tomorrow for an original Elseworld of my own invention entitled Wonder Woman True American.